Bam Leute und herzlich willkommen zurück direkt im Trial bei Phoenix Wright, Ace Attorney. Ich habe leider aus Versehen den Trial schon gestartet, bevor ich die Aufnahme angefangen habe. Ja, wir sind hier zurück beim zweiten Trial-Tag. Im zweiten Teil, es gab einen Recess, eine Pause von 30 Minuten, um Officer Jake Marshall in den Zeugenstand zu bringen. Ja, und jetzt sind wir wieder hier. Und wir haben von Lana in der Pause noch die Akten zum SL9, was, glaube ich, ne? SL9-Fall zukommen lassen. Detective Gaumschuh hat die uns gebracht. Und die sollten wir uns zuallererst mal durchlesen. Von daher, Judge, ich ignoriere dich mal kurz und lese mal das hier. Im letzten Part haben wir mit diesem Security-Video zumindest Officer Meekins Unschuld bewiesen. Ja, und der Rest ist leider immer noch. Genau. Files for the Joe Dark Killings. SL9 Incident Files. Solved 2 years ago. Check. Okay. Closed. Also er ist abgeschlossen, der Fall. Perpetrator Joe Dark. Crime Serial Murder. Sentence Death. Okay, zum Tode verurteilt. Meine Haare spinnen direkt wieder rum. Kaum habe ich die Aufnahme gestartet, sind sie wieder wild. Wenn deine Haare wild sind, dann hast du ein Problem. So. Ich habe eben so ein Headset und dann sind die Haare da vorne mir im Gesicht und muss ich die wegmachen. Einfach abschneiden. Nächstes Mal, ich lege mir eine Schere bereit, ne? Dann kommen sie weg. So, Victims. Edward Jones, Jason Knight, Edith Kirby, Edith, Rachel Moss, Jet Bates, Neil Marshall. Marshall also. Ist der related to Jake Marshall? Wahrscheinlich. Trial Data. Head Prosecutor Miles Edgeworth. Okay. Witnesses. Lana Sky, Emma Sky. Also die waren beide Witnesses in dem Fall. Okay. Investigation Task Force. Executive Investigators. Damon Gant, Lana Sky. Head Investigator. Bruce Goodman. Investigators. Jake Marshall. Angel Star. Okay. Gut. Na dann. Hey, Judge. Wie geht's deinem Bart? Und der Glatze? In dieser tollen Krawatte, na? The court will now reconvene for the trial of Miss Lana Sky. Emma didn't come back. Ach ja, Emma ist weggerannt, als sie erfahren hat, dass es sich um diesen Fall handelt, wo sie scheinbar Zeugin gewesen war. Allow me to call the next witness to the stand. The officer in charge of guarding the evidence room on the day of the crime. Entschuldigung. Alkohol wird wahrscheinlich nicht so gern gesehen. Witness, please state your name and occupation. Me, partner. I'm just a man same as you, wandering the trails of civilization. Occasionally helping the elderly cross intersections when needed. Yes, we get it. Oh, I know, you're a patrolman. As for my name, if you listen hard enough, you can hear the howling wind calling it out. To be exact, it's Jake Marshall, Your Honor. Howling wind? I've never heard Edgeworth described that way before. Now, Mr. Marshall, let me ask you something. You were in charge of guarding the evidence room on the day of the crime took place. Is this correct? According to papers, partner. What do you mean? This brother's soul is as boundless as the desert stands. No paper can sum it up. Maybe it's best we get on with this quickly. Please share with us your testimony on the day of the crime. In plain old English. Day of the crime. My job was to keep a wary eye on that bone orchard. They say I was supposed to make rounds 3 times a day, but that ain't my style. Besides, the room is protected by 2 security systems anyway. If I remember right, I was at the street side saloon at the time it went down. I'm just an innocent traveler man, so we're out of ammo. This time, I hit the trail. War gar nicht da. Okay. Toller Security Man. Can't say I particularly care for your attitude. Can't say I care for your beer, but you don't see me complaining. Wait a minute. What do you mean by 2 security systems? I mean the security cameras and the ID card reader. I reckon even a cowpoke like you knows about those. Yes, well, what about the fingerprint activated locks on the evidence lockers? Fingerprint activated locks? What kind of newfangled doohickeys are those? He's not being very helpful. He's not that good with machines or with following orders. Everyone's got their weaknesses now, don't they, Mr. Prosecutor? Someone seems like trouble. Okay, Mr. Wright, he's all yours. Dankeschön. Day of the crime. Yeah, they say I was supposed to make rounds 3 times a day. Besides, the room's protected by 2 security systems anyway. If I remember right, I was at the street side saloon at the time went down. Ja, das ist halt... yeah. What were you doing in a place like that? I was eating spaghetti. Not even nature's steak lunches can beat the parlor's Mongol sepia pasta. Do you mean to tell us you abandoned your police duties to eat some noodles? Not all as proud as eat tacos, partner. That's not what I meant. I hope this has at least taught you a lesson. That's strange. This is usually where WÄCHTER says, "You do not want a race this year." So, denn wir haben eigentlich ja schon... Will ich das? Soll ich das hier schon drücken? Ist fast schon ein bisschen früh, oder? Out of ammo, Officer Marshall? That's right, partner. Or as you'd call it, evidence. If you plan to pin me to this crime, then you better draw. Otherwise you're just wasting my time. My steel horse is waiting to carry me back west into the sunset. One thing seems clear. Despite being responsible for guarding the evidence room, the witness doesn't appear to have seen anything. Texas don't take orders from anyone. Everyone knows that. And your superiors don't. Okay. I have a trump card up my sleeve, so I'd best keep my cool. Before I use it though, I'd better up the ante. Ich soll es noch nicht usen? Okay. Dann pressen wir mal alles und gucken mal, ob er irgendwo was... irgendwas erzählt noch. How exactly did you keep an eye on the evidence room? I just made sure nothing moved in the security cameras monitor. That room's so still. Even time dies in there. Just was a caretaker who interred the recordings. You interred them? Videos of nothing are not useful. When the time would come, I erased the tape. Nothing unusual is recorded. Tapes are to be erased every 6 hours. Each time I'd erase a tape, it felt like I was erasing a part of my life. This guy has a flair for the dramatic, but it isn't going to do him any good. So, in actuality, you don't physically enter the evidence room. Okay. But you made your rounds on the day of the crime, right? And you heard a word I say, partner? I tell you, that ain't my style. I'm afraid I don't understand. I know Desperado, I know lots of rules get in his way. No Desperado I know joined the police force. So, Officer Marshall, on the day of the crime? Just between you and me, I didn't set foot in the evidence room that day. There was a rubber glove stuck in the victim's locker. Do you know anything about that? Sorry, partner. Can't say I do. I haven't been in that crypt in weeks. Okay, das will ich gerne pressen. How does this guy avoid being fired? Aber... Okay, soll ich es hier einfach mal präsenten? Ich frage erstmal weiter. You used to be a detective, so you've used the evidence room in the past, correct? Of course, back in the day of my locker was a goldmine of evidence. And yet you didn't know about the fingerprint locking mechanism? Sorry, partner. I ain't good with machines. Couldn't even tell you how a bike works. It's quite incredible. Sensors on the locker handles cannot be seen. It's well known that some detectives are unaware of their presence. Now that he mentions it, Detective Gumshoe said something like that too. Then right, it doesn't seem that this is relevant to the crime. Can you tell us what you were doing when the crime took place? Genau, ab da haben wir es schon. Genau. Ich würde halt gerne die Aussage aus ihm herauskitzeln, aber er fügt sie nicht dem Testimony hinzu. Von daher, ich drücke einfach mal hier. Okay, das war falsch. Okay. Manchmal gibt es so Szenen, wo man mehrmals pressen muss. Von daher, ich mache nochmal das hier. Ich war am Saloon. What are you doing in a place like that? I was eating spaghetti, bla bla bla. Do you mean abandoned? Strange. Okay, da kommt nichts Neues. Ich meine, ich könnte es hier machen. Soll ich es hier einfach mal... Ja, komm, ich presse einfach mal. Scheiß auf Leben. Okay, wir hätten es die ganze Zeit machen können, aber Phoenix meinte, nicht so schnell, ich will erst noch... Officer Marshall, doesn't it strike you as odd? That is, you being called in to testify like this? After all, you weren't in the security room at the time of the crime. And you had to drag me down here. Explain yourself, partner. It's quite simple. You left a very large trail behind at the scene. Or to be exact, a handprint. Listen real good, partner. Like I said, I'm the caretaker of that crypt. Pay my respects, that is. Make my rounds about once a month. So natural, my fingerprints will be in there. Ja, aber sie sind blutig. I only wish it were, officer. But you see, your fingerprints were covered in blood. Witness, what's the meaning of this? The bloodstained fingerprints were at the crime scene? The blood was wiped away. However, a luminol test clearly revealed this. Well, Officer Marshall? Seems to me there ain't a person in this room with a head on his shoulders. I take it you have an explanation then, Officer Marshall, about the bloodstained fingerprints. Very well, you may begin your testimony about your fingerprints, found at the scene of the crime. Like I said, it's only natural for my fingerprints to be in that evidence room. One of them just happened to be at the same place as the bloodstained handprint. The murderer touched the locker where my fingerprints was by chance. The bloodstain and fingerprints are completely unrelated. Or didn't you know the murderer was wearing gloves? See, I had nothing to do with it. Okay, du weißt also, dass Handschuhe getragen hat. Strange, denn du warst ja nicht da, du hast ja gar nichts gesehen. Oh, jetzt habe ich ihn weggedrückt. Although there's room for that. Life wouldn't be fun without any doubt, partner. Defense may cross-examine the witness. This guy's hiding something, I can feel it. That's my chance to prove it. Geh straight zu dem, was seltsam ist. Das hier. How do you know that? I may be alone, but I still do my job. keep up on the reports. There was a blood stain at the scene, though thought to be left by the murderer. That's right. It was found on Detective Gumshoe's locker. However, no fingerprints were detected on that handprint. Oh yeah, I think we tried that too. So that would mean the murderer, wearing gloves, happened to place their hand on top of Officer Marshall's fingerprint. That's the only logical conclusion. Can't let him squirm out of this one. We've got to find something. Something decisive to tie Officer Marshall to this crime. Was haben wir sonst noch? Das hat ja nichts damit zu tun, bla bla bla. Nee. Hat der Handschuh was damit zu tun? Nee, oder? Ich glaube, den brauchen wir wahrscheinlich nicht mehr. Oder sollen wir jetzt schon irgendwie revealen, dass... Nee, aber wir haben ja jetzt noch nichts, noch keine Connection zum SL9-Fall jetzt in der Konversation. Von daher... Ich presse mal alles. That's because you... How did you put it? Pay your respects once a month? Yeah, that's right. That and one more thing. That locker happens to be mine. What do you mean? I mean what I said. That's the locker I used when I was a detective. The locker I still use. Oh, that's in there now though. It's a heap of broken dreams. I see. It's strange if my pranks weren't all over that locker. Apparently his fingerprints data was never removed from that locker's programming. He must have been using the fingerprint lock all this time without ever knowing it. Okay. Updated. Found in the blah 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 on Marshall's old locker. I was starting to get the picture, partner. The picture? The seal of blood. In the desert, it's just food for the buzzards. There's only one reality, and that's this. Security tape. So long as my trial isn't in there, you can't say otherwise. This isn't getting us anywhere, Mr. Wright. Please consider carefully where you're going with this cross-examination. Yes, Your Honor. Now then, continue your testimony, Officer Marshall. Oh, das ist aber neu, oder? Too bad it wasn't me in that video, right, partner? What do you mean by that? You want to tie me to this crime, isn't that right, partner? If so, the way there's the only direct evidence you have. But that video is next to useless. It's full of blind spots. Blind spots? Places you can't see. Cameras panning back and forth, the floor isn't shown. Someone's familiar with the camera's position. They could have left the room without being caught on tape. Okay. We don't have time for your speculations, Mr. Wright. Well, Mr. Wright, if you can show us evidence in this video that indicates Officer Marshall was present, please do so now. Ich glaube, da muss ich es nochmal angucken. Haben wir Evidence? Dass er... Moment, warte. Aber ich will nochmal von vorne. Okay, sein Locker ist nicht an. Wir achten uns mal auf seinen Locker, weil das ist neue Info, die wir bekommen haben. Da kommt Goodman in Anführungszeichen. Der Locker ist immer noch aus. Da fällt das Ding raus. Jetzt kommt Officer Meekins. Der Locker ist immer noch aus. Das ist ja der ganz links oben. Mhm. Und jetzt? Komm schon. Das muss es doch sein. Weil sonst ist ja hier wirklich nichts von Officer Marshall. Das ist halt die einzige Richtung, die wir haben. Sein Locker. Ein Schließfach. Komm schon. Letzte Chance. Geh an, Licht. Ah! Es ist was im Locker drin. Okay. Easy. Easy. Nein. Stopp. Show evidence. Very well. Allow me to point out your mistake, Officer Marshall. Und so wie es aussah, war es vielleicht sogar der Mantel von Goodman. Vielleicht war tatsächlich dieser Fake Goodman war vielleicht sogar Marshall. Tread carefully, Mr. Wright, or you might wind up being the one making the mistake. Now then, let's have another look at the video. Shows this incriminating evidence of this witness, Officer Jake Marshall. So, fast forward. Miau. Die geile Mucke. Es ist am Laggen, alles klar. Wieso ist es am Laggen? Hallo? Okay, jetzt geht's wieder. Ist ein altes Videotape, ne? So, und jetzt? Stopp! Bevor das Video zu Ende geht. Present! Bring our attention back to the security camera. Is a mistake I'm afraid you'll soon not forget, Officer Marshall. Days are short in Texas, and so are our tempers. Can you sum up what you have to say in 8 words or less? Very well. You can clearly be seen in this video. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. Nice job. Exactly 8 words. Not bad, partner. The key lies in a certain locker shown in the video. Ach, sie springt direkt zum Punkt. Ist ja ein Traum. The locker with the white cloth sticking out. That was the witnesses, I believe. Now then, let's rewind the video a bit. Vorher war noch nichts drin. Ja, komm. Zack. Oh, the white cloth, it's gone. What's the meaning of this, Officer Marshall? When the crime took place, the white cloth wasn't there. Then it suddenly appeared. There's only one explanation. Officer Marshall, you were in the evidence room at the time of the crime. What's more, you opened your locker when the camera was turned away. Order, order! It would seem like... Hold your horses. Sorry, partner, but you got the wrong man. So what if my locker was opened? That doesn't mean I'm the one who opened it. Yes, it kinda does. Murder needed to hide something, so he opened the locker and snuck it in. Not my fault he happened to choose mine. Okay, wenn sogar der Judge da durchblickt, dann bist du wirklich nicht gerade der Hellste. Or is everyone staring at me like I'm a wanted man? This guy isn't just playing dumb. He really doesn't know. I hate to rain on your parade, but you're the only person who can open that particular locker. Oh yeah, I call your bluff. You say I opened that locker? No, prove it. Oops. Mein Badge. Das wäre das hier, ne? Genau. Fingerprint sensor. We talked about this earlier today. The lockers can only be opened by the detectives they belong to. What kind of crazy talk is this? Well, Detective Gumshoe did mention something about this. In any case, the locks aren't that obvious. There are even some people on the force that don't know about the fingerprint locks. Aber immerhin Gumshoe weiß es. So, Sheriff, what do you have to say in 8 words or less? You got 1 word for your partner. No. Order, order, order! Witness, explain yourself. This is a joke. It's the worst I've ever heard. I assure you this is not a joke, Officer Marshall. Now then, please tell us what you were doing in the evidence room at the time of the crime. Olay, please answer the question. What is he now? A bullfighter? That's alright, Officer Marshall. I believe we can figure the rest out from here. We can? Have a look at these floor plans. There's no place for someone to hide in the evidence room. Yet Officer Meekins didn't see Officer Marshall. If that's so, then where was the witness? Witness? Seems Mr. Wright has an answer. That's right, the only possible conclusion. War Goodman. Well done, let's hear it. Where was Officer Marshall at the time of the crime? Das wäre dann das Victim, oder? Ne? Officer Marshall was standing right here. There, but that's where the victim, Detective Goodman, was. Correct, unless the man wasn't Detective Goodman. Wieder mein Headset richten. Ah, so. Das rutscht mir nämlich ein bisschen von der Rübe. I believe the victim in the video is Officer Marshall. It was you who dressed up like Detective Goodman. Well, that's preposterous. Officer Meekins witnessed the detective at the crime scene. Once he saw the man's face, he'd know for sure. May I point out, though, that Officer Meekins did not know Detective Goodman. He also testified about the man's reaction when confronted. When I entered the evidence room, I asked him to show his ID card, sir. Yes, and how did Detective Goodman respond? He suddenly pulled a knife on me. Something about the officer's story puzzles me. If the man had his ID card, why didn't he just show it? Yes, he would have needed it to enter the evidence room, so he must have been carrying it. The answer is simple. He couldn't show it. As you can see, Detective Goodman's picture is on his ID card. Oh, I get it. If he showed that, his car would have been blown. Officer Meekins would have realized the man wasn't Detective Goodman. Do you have anything to say to this, Officer Marshall? Got quite an imagination, partner. We got a term for that. It's called circumstantial evidence. Circumstantial evidence? He's still denying it. You're gonna have to do better than that to break a detective. Unless you have hard evidence proving I dressed up as the victim. Can't say I particularly care for your uncooperative disposition. Can't say I care for your beard, but you don't see me complaining. Well, Mr. Wright, do you have any evidence proving beyond a shadow of a doubt that Officer Marshall dressed up as the victim? Well, who am I kidding? I don't have anything like that. I can see the fear in your eyes, partner. Seems you're the one who couldn't take the desert heat. This can't be happening. It's so obvious he's the one. What can I do? H-Rough. Looks like your lack of experience has finally been exposed. I'll pass on to you what someone told me when I was just starting out. When you've run into a wall with no place to go, return to the basics. The basics? For me, that would be what Mia used to tell me. Phoenix, try thinking outside of the box. I shouldn't look for proof that Officer Marshall was in disguise. But rather I should look for evidence that came about because he was in disguise. Why do you think this locker was open in the first place? What do you mean? There's no reason for Officer Marshall to open his locker at the time of the crime. Yet he did. Despite the chance it might be discovered later, as it has been. Which means he didn't originally plan to open his locker. According to the defense argument, Officer Jake Marshall dressed up as Detective Goodman at the time of the crime. Then after the crime was committed, he opened his own locker for some unknown reason. The fact that the white cloth is sticking out of the locker seems to indicate that he opened it in order to put the cloth inside. So, just what exactly is this piece of cloth? Der Mantel. Die Verkleidung. Perhaps the video is the key to all our unanswered questions. I don't have any evidence, so this video is my only shot. Very well. Let's take yet another look at the security tape. After committing the crime, the witness opened the locker to put away the white cloth. Please show us why the witness had to open his locker. Oh, der Blue Badger. Hi, wie geht's dir? Na? Guck mal, da ist auch noch ein Handabdruck. Haben wir den schon mal gesehen? Ich drücke einfach mal ihn hier, weil der Mantel, ne? Well, what do you have to say to that? Okay, das scheint nicht richtig zu sein. Alright, partner. You really want to know the reason I had to open my locker? Why? So I could stuff you in there. Huh? Sure the world would see a better place with you sent off to the boneyard. Unfortunately, unsolved cases can't be stored in the evidence room. Now I'm an unsolved case? Okay, something went wrong in that evidence room. That's why Marshall had to open his locker. Ah, okay. Das war tatsächlich ein guter Hinweis. The unexpected event itself is the reason. I better have another crack at this. Okay, ich weiß was, ich weiß es. Phoenix hat da einen guten Hinweis gegeben. Und zwar, Marshall hat nicht damit gerechnet, dass Meekins zurückfightet. Und das resultierte in einer Verletzung. Plus, das werden wir gleich sehen. Hello, Meekins. Zack. Stopp! Die Verletzung hat geblutet. Da haben wir es. Er musste den Mantel entsorgen, weil er blutig war. For some reason you disguised yourself as Detective Goodman and entered the evidence room, though I don't know to what end yet. However, something unexpected happened. Officer Meekins barged in on you. When he asked to show your ID card, you pulled a knife on him. However, Officer Meekins panicked, and the white coat you were wearing was soiled with blood. A bloody white coat? You couldn't just walk out like that, so you hid the coat in your locker. Not bad, partner. Now then, Officer Marshall, are you ready to tell us the truth? Looks like I underestimated y'all. I hope you're happy now, Mr. Edgeworth. 2 years ago, if you were only half as persistent then as you are today, we all wouldn't have to be here now would we? Officer Marshall, tell the court what you did, all of it. All right. Seems the time has come. Marshall's confession. I had to do it that day. Couldn't just stand by and let it die. I stole the detective's ID and dressed like him. I planned to take out the evidence. I wasn't expecting Officer Meekins. I knocked him out. Managed to escape. I knew which areas wouldn't be caught on the camera. There wasn't any murder in the evidence room at 5:15. So, the supposed victim was really you? But there's only one thing I still don't understand. Traces of large quantity of blood were found on the floor of the evidence room. If no one was murdered, then how could that be? Officer Meekins managed to cut his own hand. I guess he's the donor. That's way too much blood for such a small donation. Ja, das Blut ist noch ein bisschen, das ist noch ein Mystery. He had to do it and let it die. When you say it, you mean... You even have to ask, partner. It's a 9 incident. 2 years passed since that case was closed. It was going to completely end with the transferal that day. And if I have anything to do with it, that incident's not over. But what did you hope to accomplish by sneaking into the evidence room? The case is closed. Only that case's lead detective can look through the evidence. I wanted to have a look at it myself one more time, no matter what the cost. I don't care what anyone says, partner. The case is mine. Officer Marshall wasn't in charge of that investigation. Why does he care so much about it? That day was my last chance. That's why I... Testing a plan to take out the evidence. Was für Evidence? Why did you disguise yourself as Detective Goodman? I didn't make it look like Goodman was carrying out the evidence transfer. I'd be arrested for stealing evidence, which wouldn't get me anywhere. So, you did it to fool the security camera. A detective's ID card? I stole that the morning of that incident. So that really was why Goodman started filling out that lost item report. I returned his ID card. I left it on the floor in the prosecutor's office parking lot. The ID kind of found was left there by Officer Marshall. Okay. Ja, soweit so gut. So, essentially, you managed to succeed despite your lack of foresight. What do you mean, partner? I mean, the fingerprint activated lock, of course. No matter how well you disguise yourself, you can't change your fingerprints. Under normal circumstances, you wouldn't have been able to open that locker yourself. Das stimmt, ist nur zufällig. But he could because the rubber glove just happened to get stuck in the door. That means Detective Goodman must have opened the locker before Officer Marshall. I wasn't expecting Officer Meekins and knocked him out. He pulled a knife on Officer Meekins and tried to drive him off. Let's just say I was a little surprised. I only planned on being in the evidence room for no more than 5 minutes. I didn't think anyone would actually come in during that short time. Officer Meekins certainly is the one-in-a-million type of a person, mistaking a detective for an intruder and demanding to be shown his ID. I'll have to think a little more about his race this year. When did Ashraf get so much influence? Es war doch gut, dass ihm nach der ID gefragt hat. Das war doch vorbildlich. Mensch, der arme Meekins. Anyway, he threw himself at me and I ended up cutting him slightly. Sorry it had to turn out that way, with me knocking him out and everything. By the way, what happened to your knife? Oh, you mean this one? Oh, I don't know what to say. So you knocked Officer Meekins out and... managed to escape. I knew it hasn't been caught on camera. So you did your research beforehand? Those who go into the desert unprepared don't live long, partner. I didn't think it would make a difference though. Security tape is erased every 6 hours. But I'd gone as planned, no footage would have been left. However, you blooded your coat in your struggle with Officer Meekins. Someone was in the security room when I came out. The chick would have been up. I opened my locker and stashed it in there. What was Officer Meekins doing during that time? What else? I was sleeping like a baby. So what you're saying is, on that day, there wasn't any murder. blood found at the scene certainly indicates a crime took place. What are you, blind? The victim shown on that tape is me, and I'm not dead yet, partner. Das stimmt. So, you stole the evidence from the locker? Actually, no, I didn't. Why not? Huh? When I opened the locker, the evidence was already gone. What? Mr. Edgeworth, where is that evidence? Still missing, Your Honor. Detective Goodmans lock was already empty. Bis auf der eine Handschuh, der extra dazwischen geklemmt wurde. Scheinbar. Someone else stole the evidence. Officer Marshall, may I ask you one thing? Fire away, partner. This is a free country. Just remember, I'm also free to decide whether or not to answer. Why did you do this? Stealing detective's ID, injuring a police officer. This is no small offense. Moreover, you're an officer yourself. This will have serious consequences. Can't just be forgiven with a simple cut in salary. Not that salary cuts are ever a valid solution. Like I said, this isn't your case. This one is mine. And I'll do anything it takes to get an answer I'm satisfied with. Witness has an unusual amount of zeal. Let's hear more. Can't just forget the SL9 incident. You know why? Why? But that case was solved 2 years ago, wasn't it? That's the reason the evidence was stored in the evidence room. Joe Dog was convicted for his crimes. One thing I can say for sure is he deserved his sentence. I remember the Joe Dog case. It involved serial murders, didn't it? I don't intend complaining about how it turned out, but there's something that still bothers me. Something went down at the trial. Something no one will talk about. What happened? I don't know. That's what I'm trying to find out. Why is he so concerned with that incident? Maybe I should present him with what I think his real reason is. I had a feeling we'd wind up here sooner or later. Everyone involved here is related in some way to that case. Better take another look at the files. Also offensichtlich müssen wir mit dem neuen Statement was machen. Und wahrscheinlich präsentieren wir einfach die Akten. Officer Marshall, I think I understand. I think I know why you care so much about the SL9 incident. Sounds like you've been sipping too much cactus juice, partner. I have the SL9 incident file here. The name Marshall is mentioned in here. In the list of murder victims. Neil Marshall. Are you related to this man? Neil Marshall? Yeah, I'm sure you've heard his the name. 2 years ago. You received the same lousy prosecutor award you got. What? A prosecutor? Must be talking about the King of Prosecutors award. Now, I remember. Prosecutor Neil Marshall. He handled the SL9 case before Wright did. That's right, he was killed. The case fell into your hands. But what's his relation to you? He was my brother. He was investigating the murders of Damon Gant, the then Deputy Chief of Police. A group of detectives I was part of worked under them. They were desperate to prosecute the killer. Joe Dark. My brother fought Dark and was killed. That was the first time Dark left behind any evidence. That was all we need. He was arraigned and incarcerated Case is finally closed. At least, according to the public records. What do you mean? My brother could have been killed by Joe Dark. I knew my brother better than anyone. No one could have beaten him in a fight. That's it. That's your reason for your insane actions. There's more to my brother's death than what the record says. No matter how much you try to hide it, you can't fool me. Well, at least one thing's for certain. Now we know what happened at the police department on the day of the crime. Bis auf das Blut. Es ist immer noch ungeklärt, warum so viel Blut da ist. Vielleicht ist es auch wirklich nur die Handwunde. That was the last day. The SL9 case could be reopened. Not satisfied with its resolution, Officer Marshall planned to steal the evidence. Disguising himself as Detective Goodman, he entered the evidence room. Officer Meekins confronted him, so he rendered him unconscious and fled. Yes, this mystery has finally been cleared up. No murder took place at the police department that day. Things that happen by chance never cease to amaze. At exactly the same time as the murder at the prosecutor's office, this fake murder was going on at the police department. Chance? It's got to be more than just that. So, if no one was murdered at the police department on the day of the crime, that means the murder in the prosecutor's office parking lot was the real one. Which in turn means only one person could have committed the crime. Chief Prosecutor Lana Skye. But wait, a verdict wasn't reached in yesterday's trial. Which is why we examined the incident at the police department today. But there's only one reason the defendant was not convicted yesterday. There yet remains the mystery of the simultaneous murder at the police department. Seems to me this boy's got the draw on you, partner. All of the mysteries at the police department have been resolved, no doubt about it. Our sole murder took place at the prosecutor's office. Our only suspect is Lana Skye. And the testimony of one Miss Angel Star is completely incontestable. You have a response. Make it a single word or less. I rest my case. Seems this trial has reached its conclusion. There's no room for doubt. Well done, Mr. Wright. Thanks to you, I didn't need to waste my time disproving the alleged murder at the police department. There's no doubt what I proved today is true. The apparent murder on the security camera's tape really was fake. But I didn't realize that would end up proving Lana guilty. Das haben wir in der letzten Folge schon festgestellt, dass es nicht so die smarte Idee ist, aber... Now then, the time for the verdict has arrived. This court finds the defendant. Nein! Objection! Hold it! That's right! Your Honor, wait! Emma! The defense has an objection, a scientific objection. Right? What do you mean, right? Mr. Wright, are you this girl's guardian? Your Honor? Oh, in a sense. Please, Your Honor, all I'm asking is for a minute of your time. Please hear me out. Mr. Edgeworth, please. I don't want to leave any loose ends. You want a minute? I'll give you 3. I was kind of in shock. I mean, finding out the SL9 incident referred to the Joe Dark killings. Now that she mentions it. The name of both Skye sisters were in that file. But that's when I figured it out. I mean, what Officer Marshall was trying to do that day. So I knew his fingerprint had nothing to do with the crime. That left only one thing, the other handprint. You meant the traces of blood found on Detective Gumshoe's locker. But no fingerprints were found on it, right? No, but I figured if I examined it scientifically, I'd be sure to find a clue. So I ran over there and looked at it again. So, did you find something? No. Huh? Sorry. I guess I'm not much of a scientific investigator after all. Is that all? Please, don't be mad. I'm just a high school student. And I'm just an attorney. But Mr. Wright, those traces of blood are the only clue we have. If you can't find something wrong with them... Please, Mr. Wright, you're a professional. If anyone can save Lana, it's you. Me? Oh boy. Ja, also die Frage ist halt, warum waren die überhaupt da? Sie waren nicht von Marshall. Oder? Nee. Die waren nicht von Marshall. Time's up. Now then, Mr. Wright. With regard to the incident at the police department, does any reasonable doubt remain? Appears the defense is troubled by the other blood mark. Looking at the floor plans, a handprint was discovered around here. Is there a problem with this? Mr. Wright, I'm sorry, I can't give more use. But still, if you can't find anything wrong with the blood mark, Lana will be... Please answer my question, Mr. Wright. We won't have all day. Yes, Your Honor. If I've ever needed to concentrate, it's now. What could be wrong with that handprint on Detective Gumshoe's locker? Oder kann es von Marshall sein? Theoretisch schon, oder? Er hat ja Meekins verletzt, das heißt, es ist möglich, dass an seiner Hand Blut war. Could there be something I'm missing? Ja, obviously. Aber was? I object. This handprint left at the crime scene clearly shows a contradiction. The only thing that seems clear is your grasping, Mr. Wright. You've been staring pretty intently at those floor plans. Tell me, is there a problem with them? Yes, this is strange. Take a good look at these floor plans. Something is missing. Missing? You mean something hasn't been drawn on there? Yes, something that, when drawn, will completely change the meaning of the blood mark. I was afraid the defense isn't simply trying to buy time. Very well, Mr. Wright. With all this evidence here, there's got to be something I can use. The question is, which item can prove something is missing in the floor plans? Something is missing in the floor plans. Kann ich das Video nochmal angucken? Ich glaube, ich weiß es. Es ist die ganze Zeit in unserem Face. Dieses Kackstück Pappe steht genau vor diesem Schließfach. Das heißt, unsere beiden Besucher hier können da gar kein Handprint hinterlassen haben. Die würden eher den Blue Badger betatschen. Und das ist der Grund, warum wir diesen Schrott in unserer Evidence-Liste haben. Oh mein Gott. Okay, ja, das war richtig. What about that piece of plywood? The Blue Badger, mascot of the police force. Defender of truth, guardian of proof. Defender of truth, guardian of proof. Ah, klingt episch. Explain yourself, Mr. Wright. Please, look at the floor plans of the crime scene. The Blue Badger is not here. So, watch what happens when we put him in. This is where he was dancing at the time of the crime. Well, what? Atrof sieht es. That's right. So long as the Blue Badger is dancing here, it would be impossible to place a handprint at this spot on the locker. What? So that means, just exactly what does that mean? It means it can't be done. What are you saying? Blood traces were undeniably found at that locker. Don't look at me, I didn't put it there. Mr. Wright, think it through scientifically. Emma, on that afternoon, Officer Meekins was the one who brought the Blue Badger to the evidence room, right? After he put it down, it would be impossible to leave a handprint on that locker. So that must mean this blood mark was left there before the Blue Badger was brought in. Just one moment, I will not allow such far-fetched balderdash in my courtroom. It may sound far-fetched, Your Honor, but it's the only possible explanation. On February 21st, in the police department's evidence room, blood was spilled not once, but twice. But how? One time was captured on this tape taken by the security camera. Officer Meekins cut his hand, from which a trivial amount of blood fell. The problem is, the other time. Someone bled prior to the struggle shown on this tape. It had to have been Detective Goodman when he was really murdered. That's ridiculous. I refuse to accept your absurd claim. The murder portrayed in the security tape has been proven to be a fake. However, that does not explain the blood mark found on the locker. So then, assuming this murder you perpetrated really happened, when did it take place? And man, you show evidence that proves when it occurred. When did the first incident occur? To summarize, the defense claims that prior to Officer Meekins being cut by Jake Marshall, who was posing as Detective Goodman, another incident took place in that evidence room. That's right, the blood mark on the locker proves this. Very well, then tell us. When did this first incident occur? As Mr. Atrof said, proof must be presented. Proof that shows when the murder took place. There's only one piece of evidence that can show that. Now then, will the defense please present its evidence? What shows when the first crime took place? Diese weirde Number. Könnte vielleicht eine Besuchernummer sein. Ich weiß es nicht. Auf jeden Fall 20 Minuten vor Edgeworth. Beziehungsweise es könnte auch Edgeworth selber gewesen sein. Ne? Das ist ja immer noch offen. Meekins hat den Blue Badger um 4:50 reingebracht. Und davor, das heißt diese beiden Nummern davor, die sind verdächtig. If the crime took place inside the evidence room, then the killer would have had to enter it. And in order to do so, an ID card would have been required. An ID card? Oh, the ID card record. Officer Meekins brought the Blue Badger panel into the evidence room at, let's see here, 4:50 PM. the crime took place before that time, then it would be 4:40 p.m. Miles Edgeworth, just what have you done? I never would have figured you had the nerve, boy. Rob the act, witness. It doesn't take a lot of thought to figure out it couldn't have been me. Nope, I ain't getting it. I'm afraid I don't understand either. Headset wieder richten. Wieso ist das so rutschig? It's clear from the luminal test that blood was there. However, when the second crime took place, both Officer Meekins and Officer Marshall failed to notice the blood. That means the blood from the first crime was wiped away by the real murderer. I would have had just 10 minutes to murder the victim, carrying his body away and clean up the blood. Unfortunately, that's physically impossible. Ist es das? That would mean the crime must have taken place before Mr. Edgeworth entered the evidence room. Let's take a look at the chart again. There's only one other card number remaining. 777. Talk about a lucky number. But wait, that doesn't make sense. How could Detective Goodman have entered the evidence room? Vielleicht ist er eben, wie gesagt, eine Besucher-Dings. Vielleicht hat er sich eine Besucher-ID ausgeliehen oder so. Since there's no record of his card being used beforehand, he must have entered along with the real murderer. That's the only plausible explanation. He went in with 777777. Mr. Edgeworth, please look into this ASAP. Find out whose ID number is 777777. That's 17 too many, Your Honor. Unfortunately, I'm unable to look up the owner of that ID card. At least, at present. What? Explain yourself, son. The ID number 77777 belongs to someone with a rank of captain or higher. Someone who is a so-called executive officer. We don't have the authority to inquire into such a person's identity. That's ridiculous. Just how? I'm not finished talking, Mr. Wright. There is one situation in which we can be granted such authority. If an official charge filed against an executive is accepted. An official charge? You're all alike, aren't you? With your cover-ups and your forgeries. That's how the prosecutor's office operates. I take pride in my work, Officer Marshall. I would appreciate it if you would keep your slander to yourself. Slander it is. Okay. Let me ask a question. Yes? No, not to you. To her, the defendant sitting over there. Your own little executive. Lana? Don't be stupid. She's been charged with murder. Of course, we've looked up her ID number. And it's not 777777. Don't blame me for a fool, Porno. That's not what I want to ask. All I want to know is one thing about that incident. TSL9 incident? Answer me this, Chief Prosecutor. In a trial 2 years ago, did you really only use legitimate evidence? Wahrscheinlich nicht, ne? Do you need the witness to repeat his question, Chief Prosecutor? I heard him fine, Mr. Edgeworth. 2 years ago, I was in charge of the prosecution for the trial. At the time, occasionally, we felt the powerlessness of the law. At least, I did. Lana! I became a prosecutor in order to suppress crime with the law. But before I realized it, we were the ones being suppressed by the law. Defendant, just what are you saying? I'll ask you again, Chief Prosecutor. During our trial 2 years ago, did you really present all the evidence in court? Can you look me, an investigator in that crime, in the eye and say that you did? Chief Prosecutor, you didn't! I don't have to, Officer Marshall. Why won't you answer him? Drastic crimes require drastic measures. That's just the way it is. We did what we had to, in order for him to get the verdict he deserved. But Lana! Even if it involved forging evidence. See, that's what I'm talking about. No, no! Holy shit, calm down! Order, 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 order! Lana's remark caused such a stir. The chaos would have to wait until the following day. Okay. Das war laut. Okay, kriegen wir jetzt nochmal ein Trial? Ernsthaft? Oder, ne, the following day hieß es. Das heißt, wir haben jetzt wieder eine Investigation Teil vor uns. Also, wir haben ein Fake-Mord im Evidence Room, das auf dem Tape ist. Aber wir haben einen zweiten Unfall, nenne ich es mal, der vorher passiert ist. Mit einer mysteriösen Nummer, die scheinbar einem hochrangigen Offizier gehört. Ich glaube, wir haben alle schon so ein bisschen eine Vorahnung, wer das eventuell sein könnte. So viele haben wir ja noch nicht kennengelernt. So viele hochrangige Offiziere. Ja, von daher würde ich sagen, bleiben wir mal gespannt. Wir sehen uns beim nächsten Part. Bis dahin, macht's gut, Leute. Und tschö.